Are at the 29th Climate Change Conference in Baku, Azerbaijan, and we are here putting a very bright spotlight on forests. So today is the Science, Technology, and Innovation Day here at the Climate Conference, and we're here sitting at the first ever Forest Pavilion at a climate change conference. And we'll be talking to different experts throughout the day to better understand the relationship between forests and climate, what we're doing, what we're not doing, and what we need to put more emphasis on in the future. Science Policy Interface from IUFRO. And IUFRO is the International Union of Forest Research Organizations. So we'll be talking to different researchers, experts, and people like you who've been really trying to understand how do we take science and translate that into substantial policy action at national and global levels. So I'm really curious, can you tell us more about why forests are critical to climate? Why is it exciting to have this space here at COP?
Thank you, Selena. Yes, the main thing is that forests are used as a tool, as a solution for climate adaptation and climate mitigation. But forests are much more than just carbon storage. Forests provide a wide range of goods and services for the whole humanity. So we have to keep in mind that even if they are a tool to store carbon, they are much more than just that.
So you've kind of alluded to the fact that forests are a tool. So can you share kind of how have forests been viewed at the Climate Change Conference, and what would you like to ideally see coming from policymakers coming out of these conferences in the future?
Yes, forests are seen by many as something that can be used to prevent or to reduce the negative effects of climate change, but nobody is talking about forest needs or what forests need to be preserved and sustainably managed. And this is what the Forest Pavilion is here for, to raise awareness that forests are important and forests need to be manage and preserve in a way that we can keep on having forests in the future. And this is so far not a central part of the climate COPs. And now, finally, with the Forest Pavilion, we are getting there.
No, it's super interesting because I remember seeing a headline that was talking about how they're not absorbing as much carbon as predicted, right? So it was kind of, we make these assumptions, but maybe without the understanding of the intricacies and what's necessary for forests and for the people in forests to sustain them, we might not actually have these solutions, thriving in the future like we would want.
Yes, and what you mentioned that what forests absorb is less than what we were expecting. This is still a big field, and we don't know that much. We know a lot, but we don't know enough, and that's where science comes in. We need more science to understand better how the whole complexity of forest and forest ecosystems work together, and how each different forest ecosystem fits into the global patterns. And for this, we need to study forests much more than what we are doing now. And this is an important step forward.
So I think it's really important to talk about science. And on one hand, there's a feeling that, well, scientists have known all this information. We have all the information we need. We're just not taking the government action. But what I'm hearing you saying is we actually don't have all of the information we need. And at the same time, when we do have that information, we kind of are not taking that forward in policy. So can you maybe talk about what you'd like to see from policymakers, from policy forums, in terms of uptake of existing science? Or do they also need to invest in new research? Like what are the main messages you want to see moving forward?
Actually, it's both. We need new research because things are constantly developing, constantly changing, and also because we need to we have a need for more knowledge. So we need more new research, but we also need to take that research that has been already produced and bring it to the policy making. So policymakers can make decisions based on facts, based on knowledge, and this sometimes is not so easy because there is a bit of disconnection between the policy making sphere and the science or civil society sphere. And at IUFRO, for example, in the science policy program, we try to make bridges between these two spheres and bring the science to the policy making. But it's a challenge.
Why do you think it is so challenging?
There is a bit of disparity between how fast a decision needs to be made and how fast science can produce good results. So sometimes the results are needed today, but science needs a bit of time to produce good results. So it's not so easy to complement these two things. And still, there is a lot of science already produced. There is a lot of knowledge out there, but this knowledge has to reach the people who need to make the decisions. And this is also sometimes not difficult because, for example, here at the Climate COP, we can see that this is huge. There must be, I think I heard this, 80,000 people here at delegates.
Wow.
So how do you find the right person among 80,000 people when everybody is super busy during these days? So this is difficult, but we are here precisely because of that. So
and with more space than ever before. So we're hoping this can be a feature moving forward. So you talked a bit about the science policy program that exists at IUFRO. Are there some successes that you look back and say, actually, this was a really great moment where we saw science and policy collaborate that you have in your mind?
Yes. For example, we have been asked sometimes by some policymakers that they had to make a decision about some ways to sustainably manage a forest in some specific country. And they ask, okay, but how should we do that? So we are constantly producing assessments and compiling knowledge, and we have a huge backlog of information that we can provide when a need arises. And also we are a network of more than 50,000 scientists, so we can immediately put in contact a scientist in a specific topic with someone who has a question on that specific topic. It's a way to make this process faster, not to have to wait for new science to be produced. But if you can connect the actual expert on the specific topic directly with the person who needs to know something, this is a much faster process.
Yeah, and I guess that's the power of IUFRO, of organizations that have this networked kind of global approach. And so this is something you've been working with for how long?
At IUFRO, I have been for a bit more than 4 years, but previously I had been working as a scientist for about 10 years, something like this.
And in that time, so much has changed. Like I was thinking about this coming to Baku. It's my 8th climate change conference, and I feel like it's just the beginning. But the feelings, around the progress of these climate change conferences, around kind of global governance and policy processes, that's been something that's shifted over that time. So can you just tell me how that's shifted for you, and what your aspirations, how does that change kind of how you see the science policy interface?
Yeah, so the COPs in general are growing and growing and growing, and this is is becoming a huge thing. The problem of that is that the disconnect the gap gets wider.
Yeah.
But also it offers the advantage that there are a lot of organizations here that it's not only IUFRO that has this science policy interface work. There are many other organizations that in their specific topics try to reach the policymakers to make sure that the interests of their specific topics are listened to. But this means that the policymakers know that science is here, that they can ask us for, if not advice, at least base of knowledge to have something more solid on that they can work on. And this is something that, despite the difficulties of reaching them in this big space, it's something that is getting it's getting more known that there are scientists here that are willing to reach the policymakers if we get the chance.
Yeah. So I think I hear what you're saying. On one hand, the gap has been getting wider, and at the same time, there's also more interest and more, more people paying attention to climate, ready to take action. And so the presence of organizations like IUFRO and of scientists here at this forum, it's basically like an open arm, like we're here, we have tons of knowledge.
Exactly.
Please, take the time to consult and to get advice, to collaborate before you rush ahead and make a decision or put a new solution into practice.
That's a very good way to put it.
I like that. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us here. We are here at the Forest Pavilion, the first ever Forest Pavilion here at the Climate Change Conference in Baku. And we'll be talking to different experts throughout the day to talk about why forests matter, and why science is really critical to these conversations in these spaces. So thank you, Nelson from IUFRO, for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, stay tuned.